CT will welcome you with today's proverb. And this week the proverbs are from the Gambia.
Yes, the Republic of the Gambia, not just Gambia. This proverb is actually interesting. If you stir up water in the pond, you will bring up the pond.
If you stir up water in the pond, you will bring up the pond. Prof, what's your interpretation?
Yeah, you make the pond come alive. That is how I understand it. Because if it is not stirred, then it's dead. But you stir it and give it life.
Perfect.
Stirring up the water in the pond, you bring up the pond.
Yes.
Is that what you're doing with a letter to the president?
Exactly.
Okay, give us now, first of all, the background. You have written a letter to President William Ruto. What about and why?
It is the civic duty of a patriotic citizen to be involved in the affairs of his or her nation. I observe our nation on a daily basis, and I'm worried. I'm worried that we are on the wrong path. And the buck stops with the President of the Republic of Kenya. And that is why I chose to write to him to raise the critical issues. And remember, in that letter, I remind him that I did write to you on the first day of March, the year 2023. And on that occasion, I wrote to both him and Mr. Raila Odinga when the country was in trouble. Of course, I've been vindicated. What I did suggest is what came about. The two gentlemen have entered into a rapprochement, and they are singing all the way to different places. But not for the benefit of the nation. Because things have gone south, in my view, and they continue to go south. And it is our duty to remind the president that you took an oath to serve your country is unhappy. That was the genesis.
Has it been received?
Oh, of course, the letter was received. I have a signed copy. It was delivered at his office in Arambe House, and it was received.
Do you expect a response from him?
I don't. My experience with African heads of state, except 3, they never respond. And I write to quite a number of them. The late John Joseph Pombe Magufuli used to respond to letters. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni responds to letters. Paul Kagame responds to letters. And I must also remember that Chakwera of Malawi does respond to letters. But Kenyan presidents, and I've written to all of them except Jomo Kenyatta, never respond to letters.
So even last year's letter was not responded to?
No, it was not responded to.
Okay. In this letter, you tell the president a number of things, of course, reminding him about last year's letter and telling him what you felt then. And then you say it's common knowledge that the political rapprochement rode in the crest of protest by a segment of young Kenyans, Christ and Gen Z, in the month of July, during which they dramatized their dissatisfaction with the finance bill and the performance of your administration in several key areas. In response to their popular demands, you returned the finance bill to the National Assembly with all provisions deleted and dissolved your cabinet, which has now since been reconstituted in partnership with ODM. Your Excellency, your actions notwithstanding, and as I write, the National Intelligence Service will have informed you that there is a circulation of a lamentation about Kenya titled "Cry, My Beloved Country." And you quote that "Cry, My Beloved Country." What circulation is this, P.L.O?
You know, somebody sent me that particular poem, if you may, crying about the country. And if you read that poem, the individual is listing a number of concerns. This is our country where governors and others are looting. This is our country where things are not happening in the right way. And you cannot fault all the issues that are raised there. And the gentleman is saying, but even when this is happening, there appears to be no positive response. It is business as usual on the part of the political class. Look, for example, at the finance bill. Without precedent, there has never been in the history of any country that I know where the president, upon receiving a bill, returns it with all provisions deleted without recommendation as to what ought to happen. We are now back again. The finance bill will be back with a bang. Cabinet reconstituted, and the individuals whom we thought would leave cabinet are back there. And in fact, when they are being vetted, they tell us how much they have raised or made in the last 2 years. Personal fortunes have increased, but the fortunes of the country have dwindled. These are concerns, and yet we are not angry as Kenyans. So that what the Gen Z did was to scare the political class for only a short while. And after they have entered into this alliance with the president, has entered into this alliance with Mr. Raila Odinga, he now feels that he has settled the political temperature, because by doing so, he has ethnicized the politics of the country, and in his mind, I think, neutered the movement of the young people. So you can do whatever you want. And this is not without precedent. We have seen it. We have seen it with the President Moi. We have seen it with the President Kibaki after 2008. We have seen it with President Uhuru Kenyatta, and now with President Ruto. If you remember, during the campaign, the president said, I will not allow myself to enter into any engagement with Raila Odinga.
Yeah. P.L.O, I hear you. P.L.O, there's something you've said, and I think it's interesting, that when you look at the unfolding of events, you've said that Kenyans are not angry. Kenyans are not angry, and that's why you don't see what any kind of action. The Gen Z protest did quite a thing in terms of putting a fork in the road in terms of where folks are going to go. But you've gone ahead to say that Kenyans are not angry. What would you see if Kenyans were?
If Kenyans were angry, Kenyans would sustain the protest. The middle class would sustain the protest in an organized manner. And we saw this in Sudan. When the middle class, the doctors, the lawyers, the business people, the engineers came to the street, until Omar al-Bashir left office. We saw this in Bangladesh, until Sheikh Hasina ran away and the entire cabinet ran away. We are not saying that they ran away or leave office. We are simply saying until they respond positively and do the things that are in the interest of the nation. But Kenyans very quickly become ethnic. I saw, for example, when a few individuals were appointed into cabinet from Nyanza. When you are in some of these forums which are ethnic, a number of the individuals from the Luo community are now saying, we now control the treasury. The money is now kept in Homa Bay. We are happy now. And you cannot run a nation on the basis of giving pride of place to primordial ethnic instincts. You soon divide the people. You hold homecoming parties and celebrate, and he who was the devil becomes the angel. And the anger is only as far as your political kingpin has not had his need satisfied. Once your political kingpin has been taken care of, then we all say, hallelujah, it is well with us. And that, I think, is one of the most unfortunate things in the Republic of Kenya. And if you hold a different opinion, like I tend to do, you can become the enemy.
Indeed.
You become the enemy.
But these same Kenyans, the people that you speak of, for whom, again, are sovereign, still have issues that are supposed to be taken care of, which to an extent are not. It's the same Kenyans that you say hold up the tribal position as sacrosanct, but still are suffering very many things. Education in the doldrums, healthcare. I mean, it's obvious what's happening with healthcare today. We have an infrastructure that could do with a good kick in the pants, if you know what I mean. But still, we hold this positioning or this ethnicity or this tribalism at a higher regard than livelihood.
You know, my sister, there's something that we call the Stockholm Syndrome, where he or she who has been captured begins to love the captor. And this is the situation with Kenyans, that the politicians insult, abuse, and humiliate them on a daily basis. But somehow, they are quick to defend them. You've talked about the health sector now. See what is happening. But somebody is going to defend. I listened to the minister for the time being in charge of the health docket. She appears to be completely clueless. But yet, if you wanted to remove her from office today, her tribesmen and women will come and say, that is our daughter. I saw the case of the acting commissioner, IG, who literally disobeyed court orders. And people are saying, but he's from our tribe. And this happens, and I always remind myself this, that when a country is hurtling towards its destruction, then even when God himself reasons with their leaders and the people, they think God mad. They sacrifice at the altar of ethnicity to the detriment of the nation. So they are complicit in all these. But if people are angry and they want the right things done, then they will insist that the things be done. And I want once again to remind all of us of what happened in Bangladesh, which was after the Gen Z protests in Kenya. They were so dissatisfied with the Sheikh Hasina government, and they were disciplined. They went to her palace. She was airlifted to India. The ministers have all run away, and then they appointed somebody to be in a caretaker position because they were angry and they know what they want. Kenyans know what is wrong. But when it comes to tribe, somehow we give it a pride of place. And that is why the country continues to underachieve. That is why we are not running a democracy. We are running a kakistocracy, a government of our very worst. I listened to some of the lady talking about the impeachment of the Kericho governor. And I said, this is our leader. Can barely make sense and articulate an issue. And yet, those are the individuals whom we prefer because they have unexplained wealth, because they come from our tribe, because they come from our clan. The foundation is wrong.
P.L.O, the common thread in everything you've said appears to be not only an accommodation, but an acceptance of impunity.
Yes.
So that when we see it manifested in different ethnic groups, it is a commonality.
Yes.
Because everything we see, when you talk about a position of authority being given to someone in the form of a CS, what is it you're looking at? You're looking at power, and you're looking at what purportedly one could benefit. So it appears that the one thing we seem to have accepted as a nation is that wrong is not only tolerated, but it is accepted so long as it suits our own. And on that we seem to have agreed. Because it's the same issue every time you hear of a governor, either expecting, anticipating, or there's a threat of impeachment. There are always people who support that individual, there are always people who don't. And everything that is complained about has to do with how it is. They have a complete and total disregard for what we know as what is right, or as what is in the Constitution. And if I look at some of the rulings that our courts have had of late, it has been about constitutionality.
Yes.
Saying, all this thing is saying, this is not constitutional.
Yeah.
So if it isn't constitutional and people have been doing it, NGCDF, for instance, right now,
Yes.
it's not the first time. This thing has been in the courts, and the courts has pronounced itself several times. But again, there's a hue and cry about it. How on earth do we cure this disease that seems to have taken root? We seem to have determined as a nation that we will disregard what is right.
You know, Siti, you are so right that in this country, the truth depends. It depends on which tribal affiliation you are talking about, and that is relevant. And that is a tragic thing. If you look at even the whole fight against corruption, if you arrest anybody, they say he is a thief, we know, but he's our very own. And therefore, he's our thief, and therefore he or she ought not to be punished. And it's because the foundation is wrong. I always remember Mwalimu Nyerere saying this very eloquently, saying that when a nation is bankrupt of ideas, then they sacrifice at the altar of ethnicity or religion. In Kenya, it is ethnicity. And the question you are posing, how do we deal with it? History has demonstrated that if you have leadership at the top that walks the talk, it can be eliminated. I worked fairly closely with President John Joseph Pombe Magufuli. And within 1 year, he had injected discipline in governance. He had ensured that things were happening on the right way, in the right way. And it can be done when the tone from the top is clear, consistent, and is accompanied by action. But when the tone from the top is not clear, or one says with one side of the mouth what is right and does completely the wrong thing, then the people know that this is just but a joke. Now, occasionally when I see individuals who are delivering speeches on the national scene, and I don't even listen keenly to those. I wait for them at funerals in their rural settings when they now descend into their factory setting and listen to what they say. I listened to one of them who was speaking in Nyanza and is from the Kalenjin extraction. And this is a senior government official saying, we are Nilots, and this is our time to organize against other communities. You are senior government official. You are talking about your Nilotness. You are not talking about the Republic of Kenya. How can it be repaired? We must, as a country, take a solemn vow. Look even at the professions. If you go to lawyers, we are now organizing ourselves around ethnicity. Kisis have their own association, Luos have their own, Kikuyus have their own, Kambas have their own. What is the role of the Law Society of Kenya? Why do we descend into these ethnic outfits? But we do, and we don't apologize. And as long as we follow that path, the country will ultimately pay. And it can pay very dearly. If you doubt me, ask the Somalis. What the equivalent of tribe in Somalia is the clan. And that is why it has not been possible to put Somalia together, because we worship at the altar of the gods of ethnicity. The president, if he chose to, can move us in the right direction, even by the manner in which you appoint individuals. If you look at major organizations and look at the appointments in this country at the national level, and you look at the appointments in the counties of a young mentee who is a doctor of the Luo extraction, was head of the medical sector in Siaya. He was told by the then administration in Siaya, we cannot have a man from Migori. Is of the Luo extraction now. The division is because he's from Migori, not Siaya. A doctor. But yet, when you and me are sick and we want to be treated, we don't care about the tribe. We just want a good doctor. When we are flying, we are not asking which tribe, which tribe is the pilot. We just want a good pilot. I think it is Deng Xiaoping once said that when you want the rat caught, you simply want a cat that can catch the rat. You don't care whether it's black or brown. But here we ask, is the cat our cat? As long as we ask those irrelevant questions, our country will continue to suffer, and it is suffering as we speak.
Let's take a break.